Alright, so I've got the outer case opened up because it is a pain in the ass to open up. I don't know why. I don't know if like this lip is bent or this or whatever, but it sticks on this side here. Whatever. I'll try to come up with a solution to try to fix that later. But for now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take this apart as much as possible, take out the expansion cards, take out the drives, and try to take the motherboard out so I can get a good cleaning of the case, the dust and everything, and also get a better look at the motherboard in case there's any capacitors need to be replaced, as well as the RTC clock. So let's get started. Take out the modem, and that's it for the expansion cards. Everything else is just this riser card for the PCI ISA slots, and then the drives, and then ultimately the motherboard. So okay, now we can get a somewhat of a better look at the motherboard, especially once I disconnect these ribbon cables for the floppy and hard drives and the optical drive. Anyway, let's front panel. I'm gonna take a quick photo with the A roll. So here's the front panel bezel removed. Definitely needs some retro brighting. I'm going to have to figure out how to remove this because I don't want that to get wet because it's plastic coating over some paper. The Intel Pentium Inside sticker that's here is probably safe from the retrobrite process, although at the same time I'm going to retrobrite underneath just in case, so I might need to use a heat gun on a low setting to remove that, but we'll see. That'll be determined later. So anyway, let's look at the rest of this here, this mess. This is the CD audio cable, and after that there are screws on the other side, which for at least the optical drive can be removed more easily. Oh, that's right, the power cable. Alright, so this is a NEC CD-ROM drive, CDR 273. I'll have to look it up, but I believe it's a 4X CD-ROM drive. It might be 8X, I don't remember. Next, we have to remove the floppy drive, and there's a screw here, which is not accessible due to the fact that the motherboard's in the way. So we will remove the screws from the motherboard next. So not a terribly difficult system to take apart, but not the easiest either, at least not by today's modern standards. But here's the actual board itself. Oh, and it looks like they did the mod here with a CMOS battery instead of just replacing the RTC chip and clock with a modern version of it, and I believe it's basically the same. I never actually took my computer apart this far when I had it back when I was a teenager. So this is kind of exciting and cool and a little nerve-wracking because I want to make sure I didn't ruin anything. But I really wanted to take everything apart so that I could get to the inside of the case to clean it out of any dust bunnies and things like that, as well as to inspect the board to make sure the capacitors are not in bad shape, and etc, etc, etc. So let's get this floppy disk drive out. And it's just a standard Panasonic floppy disk drive. I don't know if this is the original one or not. No, actually it's not, because it was purchased from Cyberworks for $10.99. I'm guessing it's a replacement floppy drive. I'm pretty sure the original one had almost all NEC parts, if possible. The other neat little fact is these little guys here are also the same as the feet on the bottom. So, and these are basically just here to keep the case from kind of caving in and stuff like that, to give it a little bit more rigidity, if that makes sense. All that's left inside here, other than the IDE cable for the CD-ROM drive, is the power supply and the hard drive. The hard drive is pretty tight in there, and I can't get my screwdriver to even turn. And here it is, the 1.2 gig hard drive. Maxtor model 71336A. I will make an image of this because according to the seller, they had just restored it to factory defaults. So I'm going to image that, because even though I have the recovery CD, it still would be nice to have a factory image itself, just in case I need it, or if anyone else needs it. And if I remember, I'll try to put it on archive.org, just so that everyone has that. And the last thing is the power supply. And it's out. I will disconnect the power button shortly, but otherwise this case is for the most part done. I got to take out the game port and see if I can bend the tabs on the PC speaker so that I can remove it as well, and then remove the fan, and that should be it. And I can then properly vacuum this case out. For the purpose of this, I just wanted to get this apart, and this video's been recording for a long time, and I'm gonna have to cut it down some further. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all out and vacuum everything out and try to clean up the hard drive, the floppy drive, the CD-ROM drive, and everything else, and then put it all back together just to test to make sure everything works. But I do want to do an inspection on the motherboard, and I will do my best to record it as best as I can. So I want to make sure there are any capacitors or anything else on there, if they need to be replaced, that I replace them. So while everything is soaking and cleaning and everything, let's take a look at the motherboard and the riser card for the PCI and the ISA slots. So it's just a standard riser card. I'm not sure if any other company uses a similar design, similar edge connector, but a lot of NEC and Packard Bell computers of that era used them. In fact, I've seen a few of these on eBay that had more PCI slots than ISA slots. So possible to upgrade. I don't think I have a need for additional PCI slots, but who knows? A little dusty, I'll have to clean that. But let's take a look at the motherboard itself, because that's going to be more interesting anyway. Let's see if I can get it all in one shot. Yeah, looks good. A little reflective. Not much I can really do about that, unfortunately, with the overhead lights. But so this here, you may have noticed right away, this is the Dallas RTC clock battery combo that a lot of systems used and still do to this day. There's a mod you can do to basically disconnect the internal battery and wire up an external one. This person decided to, instead of buying one with a socket and all of that, just solder the battery directly. Not sure how well that is. Fortunately, it does look like it's socketed, the whole RTC, and I did find a replacement. Actually, we'll do it this way. So I did find a replacement for it, fortunately. Yeah, so that just comes out. That's really convenient. Wrapped in tape, so now I don't know if it's the correct one it's supposed to be. I'll have to double check. The socket 5 with a heatsink on there and a Pentium chip. Not sure what the thermal paste looks like. I'll have to take a look at that. CD audio cable I forgot to disconnect earlier. The board overall is pretty clean. Not too much dust, really. A little bit here and there. So, oh, that's right. There's a little rubber foot that they used as a spacer along with that there. Otherwise, everything just screws into the case itself and into the standoffs. I don't see any damaged traces at all. I don't think you guys do either. Again, sorry about the glare. It's a very shiny board, very shiny solder mask. But let's take a look. You've got the VRAM here, 1 meg that it comes with, and you can upgrade it to 2 via these sockets here. I'm going to see if I can try to find some. Got a feature connector, not sure what that's for. This here is the wavetable connector, so you can hook up a wavetable synthesis, add on to the Opti sound card. Intel chipsets, line semiconductor video, additional chips for other things. This is Intel S82438FX. Not sure if it's showing up or not. So there's that, as well as an SMC FDC37C665IR, and also a Mega KBH0, or HQ possibly, HQ. I'll try to find information on those chips and see what they do. Here's the BIOS, AT-style power connector. Yeah, it's board's in overall good shape. So jumpers here, which there are. Let me see if I can capture it on camera. If not, I'll take a photo of it. But as you can see, NEC and a lot of computer companies did this during this era. They left a nice little diagram here of what all the jumpers do. So you can change the processor, password clear on the BIOS reset, bus speed, etc., etc., etc. So that's kind of cool. So this particular board can support up to 133 megahertz processor, maybe up to 166, although it doesn't seem to have the jumpers for it. So we'll have to make do. See if I can zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, so there's that. Sorry for the shaky cam. I keep bumping into it. So there's that. The other thing I want to look at is the power supply. It is an Aztec or ASTEC, or however you say it, 200 watts. So, you know, for the time, that's more than enough. It does have negative 12 volt, negative 5 volt, which was important at the time. Most power supplies nowadays don't have the negative 5 volt. Some don't even have negative 12 volt, and I believe there's a new power supply standard coming out where it's going to be all 12 volt, and the board will regulate voltages to the different components that need different voltages. So there is a little bit of rust and corrosion, which I'm a little concerned about. Hopefully it's just superficial. I'll have to sand that and maybe paint over or something just to protect it. There was some on the case itself, and I'll see in like small little spots, and I'll try to capture that on camera at a different time, maybe some photos or something. But let's take apart the power supply because I need to make sure that nothing inside is damaged or blown or anything like that. This just slides off and there's nothing attached to it. Newer power supplies sometimes will have fans or wires attached to it, and makes it a pain to remove. Dusty for sure. I'll have to clean it out along with everything else. Fuse is intact, fortunately. I do not see any signs of bulging or leaky capacitors. I'll get a better idea once I clean it, but that's the inside of that. Next thing I wanted to take a look at was the CD-ROM drive, because it's kind of dirty inside. I took the front bezel off so I could clean it and retrobrite it. Hopefully I'll be able to get the stuff retrobrited soon and get everything together, but I need to find a container large enough for everything, and I've been having a hard time. So let's go ahead and remove the 3 screws just so I can get inside and right to the PCB. Okay. And then there's a 4th screw specifically for the PCB. It is different than the other 3 slightly, so. And there are ribbons. So I'll have to carefully see. All right, I think the other angle was better for me. Additional wires here. There. Okay, so there's the board. Again, reflective, a little dusty, but clean it with a little bit of IPA later. It's a little layer of foam, which I'm guessing insulated here. So that's a thing. Now the rest of the mechanism should just technically just slide out. I don't see any screws or anything holding it in place. I don't feel anything under the label. So, where is the eject mechanism? There it is. Tray's relatively clean. A little bit of dirt, and that's probably from me, from the foam rubber in front. Alright, and guessing for the laser mechanism, one or two more screws. And there we are. Relatively clean. Impressive. Seems to move freely enough. So it uses a screw mechanism. Looks like there's plenty of grease or silicone still there, so that's good. Alright, there's not much to do here. I'm just going to clean the board off, clean up some of the parts, get this back together, and go from there. Alright, so much better. Not perfect, but it will do. Wow, look at all this gunk here from all the decaying foam rubber. Maybe I should just replace the drive after all. Alright, let me get the power supply cleaned up, because it is, like I said, it's filthy. And hopefully I can get started on that retrobrite process soon. I wanted to try it, do it outdoors, but the sun's been hit or miss today. Maybe tomorrow will be better, but then again tomorrow I'm not going to be around much, so I can't, and then I want to just leave it out, so I might just have to resort to a UV light, maybe. Whatever, I'm just rambling now. And here's just some shots of the inside of the front panel, front bezel and everything, where all the buttons are, as well as a contrast between how yellowed it actually is. And there used to be a Microsoft Windows sticker here. Not sure what happened to it. Anyway, let's take a look at the power supply itself, because I already took it apart, and we're going to check out the inside. So I'm going to relubricate the fan, and we'll take a closer look at that rust. Okay, and as you see, I still have to take care of the rust and all of that. So I'm going to try to just sand it off lightly and probably put a coat of paint over. I may actually have to take all of the circuitry and everything out, unfortunately, but see, they're not screwed in. Oh, there is one screw. The rest are just kind of, well, they're supposed to be in these grooves. This one isn't, not sure why, but we'll see. I can maybe possibly just cover everything up and just paint over it. We'll see. I don't have any finer grit sandpaper, unfortunately. I take that back. I managed to find a small strip of 600 grit, I believe. Heavily used, but should be enough on there maybe. Alright, instead of the vinegar, we'll switch to IPA. I realize you can't see the power supply on the screen. It's because of these power cables that are coming out. Oh, it's not too bad. But like I said, I'm going to probably spray it with some Rust-Oleum or something just to keep it from getting any worse. But I'll do that outdoors because I don't want the fumes in the house. Alright, so I'll get that done and get started on the retro brighting, but all of that's going to be for part 3 because this is already running way longer than I wanted it to, even after I cut everything down. So part 3 I won't necessarily show the whole retro brighting process, but I'll do that, get some footage for it. What we'll do is then replace the RTC battery and clock. That's this guy here. Well, it'll be the new one, not the modded one, obviously. Get everything back together, fire it up, do an initial test, and then look at putting in the CF2 IDE adapter and a CF card and re-imaging it using the original CD. So if you like part 2, definitely stick around for part 3. Should be available next week. And if you like this video in general, hit the thumbs up and feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet. Of course, never any obligation. If you didn't like the video, hit the thumbs down, but please leave a comment below as to why, so I can try to use that to help things going forward. Otherwise, thanks all, and I'll catch you later.